You're listening to the Telltale channel. Don't forget to check me out on all social media: Patreon, Twitter, Teespring, and Etsy. All links can be found in the description or on my website, telltaleatheist.com. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming. As you can see, I have Ben Shapiro on my screen right now. Ben Shapiro is not somebody that I've covered very much. In fact, I don't know that I've covered him at all, like literally ever. But he is a far-right propagandist who demonizes people frequently, has taken part in stochastic terrorism as far as I'm concerned, through demonizing things like Boston Children's Hospital and spreading misinformation and hate against various different groups of people. So I wanted to take a look at this video, and the name of the video is Trends That Are Grooming Your Children, quote unquote. Now, this is a slightly edited version. I just cut a couple of pieces off and filled it in with like a fade, a black fade, because there were some words in it that originally I didn't want on my channel. I don't know how he got away with having it on his channel without having it age restricted, but anyway. I'll point it out when we get to the point where I cut something out, and I'll tell you exactly what it was when we get there. So anyway, let's talk about Ben Shapiro, because this is a masterclass in propaganda and how to spread it. And while we talk about Ben Shapiro and the nutter buttery that he brings to the table, we're also going to play Breath of the Wild. It's just something for me to do while I sit here and chat with you guys and listen to nutter buttery get spread all over everything. So, yeah, be pretty entertaining, I think. Okay, why don't we get into it? Listen to what Ben Shapiro here has to say.
Well, there's a word you're not allowed to say in social media.
Oh, hang on. Testing. 1, 2, 3. Test.
That word.
Okay, that's roughly right, I think. Maybe down a little bit. All right, here we go.
Well, there's a word you're not allowed to say in social media anymore. It's a word that has become absolutely forbidden. That word, of course, is groomer. If you say the word groomer, this means that you are...
I love it. He literally just said the word. I guess that means that you can, as a matter of fact, say the word perfectly safely on social media, can't you? In reality, if you use... It's not the word that anybody has a problem with. I've used that word in correct contexts like a billion times. The reason that people don't like it when you use that word is because you're using it to hurt other people. You're using it as effectively as a slur against the LGBT community. That is basically its only use nowadays. That's its primary use anyways. That's what most people use it for. You are perfectly allowed to say this word. He's just pretending to be a victim as usual.
Some sort of bigot. Now, the word groomer does have a history, a semantically overloaded history, because there are two types of grooming. There's grooming, as in you are a predator and you are actively talking to small children about because you want to have with the small children or with young teenagers. And this sort of language was used as a slur for many gay and lesbian, homosexual people over the course of history.
I love it. He's exactly correct. He's pointing out something that is factually correct here. It was used historically as a weapon against people. Exactly right. So he is aware of its history and why people would call him bigoted for using it to refer to, like, the LGBT community, for example. Him saying this tells me he knows exactly what he's doing and exactly what all of his friends do and why they do it and what they mean when they say it and all of that stuff. This is actually really significant and important, what he just said.
It was that if you were gay or lesbian, what you really were, you were attempting to groom kids. Okay? And that was used as a slur because the notion that gays and lesbians prey on children at a rate that is wildly different from that in the straight population, there's not a lot of evidence to support that particular viewpoint.
I love it. For once, we're getting something that is not propagandistic and is actually 100% correct coming from this guy. Fascinating, right?
Okay, fair.
It's about to go downhill. Just wait.
There's another there's another meaning to the word grooming, and that is how the word grooming actually is typically used. So if you groom somebody politically, what that means, if you're grooming somebody for higher office, it means that you are training somebody for higher office. If you groom somebody into
He thinks that when, say, Matt Walsh or Candace Owens or any other person at the Daily Wire or anywhere else, when they use the word groomer, he thinks that they're referring to, like, grooming a kid politically? He is not that stupid. I know he's not. He went to Harvard. He knows exactly what context this word is being used. You cannot convince me he did go to Harvard, right? Wasn't it Harvard? You cannot convince me that the dude who went to Harvard is that fucking stupid. You can't.
ideology. The idea is that you are grooming them into a certain way of thinking. You're ushering them and indoctrinating them.
Usually when it's used in that context to refer to like somebody being like groomed in a political sense or whatever, it's a positive thing. You're preparing this person to take over a political position in your place or something. Or like you're working as a manager at a store, an assistant manager, and the manager is grooming you to prepare for, to take a step into his role or whatever. It's never really, or it's not usually viewed as a negative thing, except when, say, Republicans like this guy right here are using it as a slur, basically. They're using it as a slur. So anyway, all right, let's keep listening.
Them and indoctrinating them into a certain way of thinking. And it's that second sense of the word grooming that is now being utilized in our public schools.
No, it isn't. That is absolutely not the sense in which it's being used in public schools or whatever other thing. Dude is... All right, this is something called equivocation. It's where you take one meaning of a word and you change that meaning out mid-sentence, basically. Like you're using a word in one way and then you switch it up and use it in a completely different way in the middle of a sentence when the whole audience is listening and assumes that you're going to be using it in the other way. It's propaganda strategy. Like I said, this is a masterclass in propaganda. So think about what Ben Shapiro is saying here and how he's saying it and why he's saying it. This is equivocation propaganda and the equivocation fallacy, logical fallacy. Fallacies and propaganda are commonly linked with each other. There's commonly a corresponding logical fallacy for every propaganda technique, or vice versa. I'm sorry, I said that backwards. There's commonly a propaganda technique that corresponds with each logical fallacy. There are also propaganda techniques that are not linked to logical fallacies, but, that's a story for another day. Let's keep listening here.
In our private schools with regards to radical gender and racial ideology. It is happening at public and private schools all across the country. The more elite, the more it's happening. I know a lot of conservatives who live in red areas who seem either unaware or unwilling to pull their kids out of schools where this kind of crap is going on because they just don't want to believe that it's going on. But it is, in fact, going on.
And what is it that's going on? People are being politically groomed, I guess, in these schools to take over in their something. I don't even know, dude. I honestly don't even know.
Have many people who are in the upper levels of administration in public and private schools who have decided that radical gender and sexual ideology must be taught to children, that the way that you create a better world is by indoctrinating them in the rules of tolerance. And when they mean tolerance, what they mean is sexual confusion.
This is not happening. This is completely fabricated. They don't have classes in schools dedicated to teaching kids how to be trans or how to be gay or any of that stuff. Completely made up. Wait, what was in that box just now? I missed it. Damn it. Okay, I'm going to watch the replay of the game. Currently, Link is walking up to the chest. He hits the button. Would have been faster just to check it again. Royal Shield, I don't need that. Okay, we're good. Anyways, yeah. He's just completely making this up. There is no class that has, like, gender ideology as part of it. You know, no elementary, middle, or high school class that has how to be a trans person or gender ideology or whatever other thing. There are, like, high-level courses about, you know, in psychology courses or psychology programs that talk about, like, the role of women in society historically and things like that. But everything that he's saying is completely made up. But you know what? His listeners will believe it. They'll believe it no matter what he says. They'll believe him.
Sexual fluidity. If there's a human cost to quote unquote tolerance, and we don't mean tolerance as in we won't hurt you. We mean tolerance as in what you are doing is morally acceptable and praiseworthy. If the cost of that is confusing a bunch of young children, if the cost of that is giving kids a chaotic picture of life that they are not ready for, if the cost of that is not providing the rules for the road that are necessary to create the preconditions for human happiness, they will happily do that.
All right, so what he just said was a little confusing, but basically what he's saying is if the cost of being tolerant of and accepting of people is confusion among children, like gender and sexual confusion among children, then it's not worth it. Basically, we should be intolerant at the cost of, or we should, all right, let me think of how to phrase this. We should be strict about what, like, oh God, I'm trying to think of how to phrase this. Really complicated. We should be tolerant at the cost of not allowing people to be gay or not accepting it when people come out as gay or whatever, or harassing them. He's basically saying we should bully kids who are gay because if we don't bully kids who are gay, then everybody in the class will come out as gay. That's pretty much what he's saying here in more basic terms. I don't know. If you disagree with me, let me know in the comments. That's what it seems like to me. I mean, clear as day.
And this is why, because you have to wonder why it is that so many administrators and teachers are not only going along with this sort of ideological and grooming, why exactly they are doing this sort of stuff. You have to wonder why they're so enthusiastic about it, because that's what's real.
What teachers are enthusiastic about, like, quote unquote grooming, or to be more accurate, like look, I'm using his terms here. I shouldn't even be using his terms. What teachers are instructing children on how to be gay and that they should be gay? What teachers are instructing people that they should be trans and teaching them how to be trans? When has this ever happened in the history of ever? This is completely made up, fabricated outrage at the cost of harassing and bullying people. Ben Shapiro seems to be in favor of bullying people because it means that fewer people will come out as gay. What he doesn't realize is the same number of people will most definitely be gay. They just won't be comfortable enough to come out. And I guess what he's saying is that's a good thing, right? Am I reading this correctly? It's preferable for people to live in fear of coming out as gay so that it doesn't possibly tempt other people to be gay also? Right? I mean, that's what I'm picking up. Is that what he's putting down?
Amazing about all of this is that we went from we just want whatever we want in the privacy of our own bedroom to we must teach your kids actively because the institute.
Nobody is saying that. Nobody said that anybody wants to teach your kids anything actively. The people are just trying to be accepting of others and not hateful. Ben Shapiro is sitting here looking at anti-bullying programs in schools and saying you're teaching them to be gay because you are decrying bullying. You're saying it's like a bad thing. This is how to propagandize. This is how you flip it around and twist it out of proportion. Make it unrecognizable from what it was. anti-bullying program is how it started, and it ended in Ben Shapiro's mind as a program specifically designed to turn your kids gay, intended to turn your kids gay. Ben Shapiro is a Harvard graduate. He claims to have gotten the highest possible score on your LSAT exam, which is the exam you have to take before you can get into a law school. He is not this fucking stupid. He's not. He can't be, right? This all boils down to him lying and propagandizing, doesn't it? I don't say that about everybody, because you shouldn't attribute malice where stupidity could explain the situation just fine. But I can't explain the situation with stupidity. I just can't.
Institutions of society are bad, and they teach your kids bigotry and evil. And so we are going to ideologically groom an entire next generation of people who believe like we believe. And that means
nobody's doing that.
we have to grab them at the earliest possible age and indoctrinate them in our viewpoint as to sexual fluidity and sexual orientation and gender identity.
Nobody is doing that. Where is the gender identity and sexual fluidity class in elementary, middle, or high school? Where is it? This is completely made up.
And we have to do that at the earliest possible.
You know, back in the 80s, this exact thing happened. It wasn't the trans panic at the time, or the, what would you even call this, gender panic, or LGBT panic? I don't know. This exact thing happened in the 80s. It wasn't called the trans panic. It was called the satanic panic. People saw Satanists around every corner. No joke. They were convinced that Satanists were infiltrating everything, trying to take control of every situation, get people in positions of power so that they could, change curriculums and school boards and all this crazy garbage, which ironically is exactly what the Republican Party is doing right now. Stated goals. I have videos of them talking about this. Specifically, Rick Scarborough, Andrew Womack, these pastors have they've actually set up organizations to do this exact thing, to sway school boards because they believe the woke leftists are controlling them right now, and they need to get like real patriots in there to blah, 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 you know how they do. I mean, this is how they do it. This moral panic has been happening since the 80s. Honestly, before the 80s, it was McCarthyism. It was communism. It was the big communist scare. Everybody was convinced communists were around every corner. They even had a slur for people who they believed were communists. They call them pinko commies. No fucking joke. Pinko commies. A full-blown real slur against people that they believed were communists. The moral panics in this country are absolutely bizarre. And every time they pop up, they go way over the top, and they have full-blown intellectuals who graduate from Harvard, like Ben Shapiro, coming out of the woodwork and propagandizing for them. He cannot be this stupid. He can't. I refuse to accept it. Anyway, the point is, this stuff's been happening since forever. This is what the right does. Not just like the Republican Party, but the political right, the conservative traditional values right, who fears that everything is changing too quickly for them, and there are monsters around every corner coming to try to take your jobs and your livelihood and your kids and convert them into something that you wouldn't even recognize. They have always believed this kind of thing. They have always viewed things this way, the political right. And we have to keep fighting against it because this is absolutely absurd, dude.
Without the parents involved. In fact, because we need the parents not involved. The parents are an obstacle to our utopian visions of reshaping the next generation. And this obviously is having an extraordinary effect on kids.
If it were happening. But it's not. It's a completely fabricated moral panic. But listen to this next part. He's about to propagandize again. Clear as day.
And you can see it by the numbers. You can see that the amount of LGBTQ plus identification among the younger generation is now in excess of 20%, like 1/5. And when you're talking about the youngest generation, it's going to be higher than that. It's going to be closer to 1/3.
Okay, I don't know where he got his numbers from. None of that sounds right to me, first of all. Second, there has been a little bit of a spike in people who identify as LGBT, and the reason for that is because they feel more comfortable with coming out and being who they are. They feel like they can come out of the closet and not hide or pretend anymore, which is a good thing. Unequivocally, that's a good thing, that people feel comfortable coming out of the closet. Same thing happened when being left-handed was no longer demonized. Seriously, you guys may not realize this because you guys are younger. I didn't even realize this. I only know this because I'm left-handed. 50, 60, 70, 80 years ago, hell, 100 years ago, it was a bad thing to be left-handed. Did you guys hang on? What? Let me look something up real quick. It's You guys ever heard the term left-handed path? Anything left used to be viewed as evil. People used to believe that being left-handed meant you were cursed. The word sinister has its roots in the word left. Sinister means left in Latin. It also means malicious. Underhand. It looks malicious or underhand is what it means. Left-handed used to be very negatively viewed. So people tried to force others to use their right hand, even if they were very clearly left-handed. And when being left-handed was destigmatized, the percentage of people who came out as left-handed jumped through the roof. There was a massive jump in left-handed people. Now, is that because all the kids at school saw one kid doing it and thought, hey, I want to be left-handed too? That sounds incredible. No, of course not. It's because it was destigmatized and they were comfortable with using whatever hand was most comfortable for them. That's all. That is basically the exact same argument that Ben Shapiro is giving. If you make it easier for people to live their lives as a gay person, everybody's going to be gay. He just said 1/3 of the population is going to identify as LGBT. Did you hear what he said? 1/3 of the population is what he just said. 33% of the population will be LGBT in Generation Z is what he just said. No joke. Does he really believe this? He can't possibly, right?
That is not because society...
Let me just step back and catch the last few seconds of him saying that.
...on kids. And you can see it by the numbers. You can see that the amount of LGBTQ plus identification among the younger generation is now in excess of 20%, like 1/5. And when you're talking about the youngest generation, it's going to be higher than that. It's going to be closer to 1/3. Okay, that is not...
True. It's not true at all. It's completely made up. This is all just gigantic moral panic, as usual. This is what I have come to expect. Oh, my God. I needed those Volt fruits. Wow, that sucks. Okay, I guess I'm not getting this. This little, whatchamahoo's it. I forget what it's called all of a sudden. My mind is shot. Anyways, yeah, Ben Shapiro is completely full of it. I just don't know how he justifies any of this. Completely lost my train of thought. But anyway, let's keep listening.
Because society has suddenly become more tolerant and genetics stayed the same. That is because society has now created a social contagion where it is considered praiseworthy and good and attention-getting if you involve yourself in this sort of identification at the center of your being, at the core of your being.
You know, they said the exact same thing about being left-handed. Seriously. They said the exact same thing when it was destigmatized. I hope to see the day when being gay or trans or whatever other thing is destigmatized as much as being left-handed is now. I think we'll live to see that day. You know, one thing that I've come to find from society is that the moral panic from the right moves from thing to thing to thing, right? For a really long time, the moral panic was being black or being friends with black people or dating a black person or your kid dating a black person or black person, you know, drinking from a water fountain from it's the same one as you or whatever. There's always something that people had to complain about the black community, you know, integrating in some way with the white community. After that moral panic was lost, they moved on to something new. In the background, communists were always the punching bags, or perceived communists. After communism kind of died away, you know, none of this fully died away, though. None of it fully died away. There's always a contingent of the moral right screaming that you know, they're out there trying to corrupt their children and all of that garbage, with communism or with being gay, or, you know, a lot of people out there still don't want their kids dating a black person or being friends with black people or whatever. This is still extremely common. This moral panic never goes away, but it does move from thing to thing. The focus does. It moved from the black community to communism to the satanic panic to now, I guess, the LGBT community, specifically the trans community, is dealing with it pretty badly right now, which, you know, is no surprise. But like I said, and before all that, the left-handed community. Like I said, I'm hoping we can see a day when this is no longer a problem, when it's mostly destigmatized. You know, there's something called the euphemism treadmill. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of this before, but the euphemism treadmill is it's a set of words. Okay, wow, this is actually a really complicated subject that I didn't think I would find so difficult to explain all of a sudden. The euphemism treadmill is the idea that there are certain words that over time get deprecated. They're no longer, like, in common use, right? Like, when I was younger, my dad was handicapped. You're not supposed to use the word handicapped anymore, really. That's kind of an edge case. The word handicapped is not, like, really that offensive. And most people don't really find it offensive. But over the course of the next 10, 20 years maybe, that word will be very offensive. It's being deprecated in favor of the word disabled. In medicine, this happens too. It's not just like in regular society. Bipolar disorder used to be known as manic depression, but in medicine, that phrase became offensive to some degree, so they changed it from manic depression to bipolar disorder. There are like a billion examples of this. It's called the euphemism treadmill. And it is one of the main drivers of right-wing thought, in my opinion. One of the main drivers that brings people to the political right wing, that gets people whipped into a blood frenzy over stupid shit that they have no reason to be upset about, honestly. You know, you turn 80... Hell, you turn 50 and, you know, you use the word handicap your whole life, and all of a sudden everyone's saying, oh my God, that's offensive. Don't use that word. And you're like, what? I've used that my whole life. I'm not being offensive. And people are calling you ableist and stuff for it. That's just how it works. People were saying this exact same thing in the 1930s. Hell, in Anne Frank's diary, I read this the other day because I'm trying, you know, dealing with the whole Kanye West situation. I've been catching up on a lot of the stories related to the Holocaust and everything. In Anne Frank's diary, she talked about how people felt like, you know, kids these days were too free or weren't doing this or that or used language they didn't like or whatever other thing. It's all about traditionalism and getting people scared and thinking things are changing too quickly, and it should stay traditional. It should be the way it's always been rather than how it is right now. That's how the right has always moved people. That has been a pipeline to the right since time immemorial. Anyway, all right, let's keep listening to Ben Shapiro. Got off on a little tangent there on the euphemism treadmill. Sorry about that. Natalie Lopez. Hi, Owen. Continue good work and best of wishes. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Mary Xmas, happy 2023. You claim that you don't care about swearing, but as English evolves, words like... I try to only fit in 1 or 2 swears per podcast if it's important, or per episode. So words like the F word... hang on, let me expand. I can't read it. And ST will be less offensive in their role, replaced with slurs like the R word and the F word. Yeah. I think you're right. That's the euphemism treadmill. You were explaining it before I even noticed. Thanks for the explanation there. Euphemism treadmill has existed since the very beginning of time. I mean, there are words from like the 1920s that you can look up that were like super offensive at the time, that people like, you don't even know those words because they were so offensive that people didn't ever use them. Using them would be like an instant social, like, I don't know, it would be like instant social suicide. Like, you just don't say these things. And as a result, the euphemism treadmill led to those words no longer being in common use, and we don't even know what they are now. It's things like poppycock, or I don't know. There were a billion. I looked it up not too long ago, but yeah, a whole bunch of words like that. Let's see. Insults from the 1920s. Let's look it up. Insults from the 1920s. Munswatcher. Gongoozler. A bearcat. Slackumtrance. Fustalugs. Yeah, maybe I shouldn't be reading these. Maybe some of them are actually still offensive. I don't know. I've never heard of any of those, but the point is that's a euphemism treadmill, All right, let's keep listening to Ben Shapiro here.
Center of your being, at the core of your being. And this is being pressed down from the heights of our culture. This is why it matters when Disney says that they are pushing a quote-unquote not-so-secret gay agenda. And this is why it matters when you see public school administrators who are saying quite openly that they are indoctrinating kids into the wide variety of...
Yeah, I had to mute a bunch of stuff because he went off on, like, a tangent. Just a ridiculous tangent. A fear-mongering bullshit tangent, as usual. That's Ben Shapiro for you. Wait, did it? Wait, maybe it... Hang on. Wait. Oh, no. Shoot. I think I may have accidentally messed up the recording in it. Hang on. Let's see. So we were at 4:10. Let me close this and try reopening. We'll watch the original if we have to. I'd prefer not to, though, because I did edit a bunch of stuff out. 4:10. 3, 4, 4, 10. Okay, here we go. Try this.
Not just radical sexual ideology, it's also radical gender ideology.
Hold on.
Wide variety of...
Yeah, I guess it did get messed up. Okay, let's switch over to the YouTube video for a minute and jump to like 3 minutes and 40 seconds. Here, let's listen from here.
In this sort of identification at the center of your being, at the core of your being. And this is being pressed down from the heights of our culture. This is why it matters when Disney says that they're pushing a quote-unquote not-so-secret gay agenda. And this is why it matters when you see public school administrators who are saying quite openly that they are indoctrinating kids into the wide variety of sexual pleasures available to them at the age of 13 or 14 with...
Okay, so what he's referring to here is something from Project Veritas. Now, if you know anything about them, you should know that they're completely untrustworthy. I don't believe a word out of the mouths of the people at Project Veritas. I wouldn't even put it past them to like completely stage things. They got in a ton of legal trouble for deceiving people through like deceptive robocalls and things like that. So I'm not going to play anything from them because, for one thing, it's really graphic and I don't need to have it on here. And for another thing, I don't trust them. I don't even trust that it's real. So I'm going to skip forward a little bit. Let's see here. Hold on. Let's see. Where is it? Wait, where the hell is it? I bet you guys didn't know you could do this with YouTube. Here it is. This is the original. Okay. So let's go from... Wait. Give me a second. I'm looking for the right spot here. Okay. So he calls out a specific school and says this specific school is doing it. Again, I don't believe him. I don't trust. Well, it's Project Veritas I don't believe or trust, but Ben is playing it again, so I don't trust him. Sorry.
And by the way, it's not just radical sexual ideology, it's also radical gender ideology. In fact, if you just go to the Francis W. Parker School website right now, they have an upcoming event, January 23rd, starring the writer, speaker, and internet yeller, Ijeoma Oluo, in So You Want to Talk About Race, for the 5th annual Dorita and...
So he's saying that this school apparently holds seminars. This is not classes that they're holding. Apparently these are like just events that you can go to on the school campus or whatever, right? This is just stuff that you can do if you want to. So you want to talk about race, okay? Who cares? They have conservative stuff all the time at schools. Hell, my kid's old school used to have a Bible thing at her school because it's an after-school club. You're allowed to have any club that you want at a school. There's like nothing illegal about that. It's just fear-mongering garbage. Again.
Bobby Robinson, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion and Belonging speaker. Wow, they've now turned it not just into DEI, it's now DEIB. Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging.
And he's like framing this like it's a bad thing. Diversity and belonging and stuff like that. Are you kidding me? This is bad in your eyes? You view this as a bad thing? Really? How can he possibly... You know, I keep asking myself, how can he possibly view this as a bad thing? But at the very beginning of this, if you remember, he said, people are going on anti-bullying campaigns, but the cost of doing these anti-bullying campaigns is kids are feeling more comfortable coming out as gay or trans or whatever. And we don't want that, right? That's a bad thing. We most definitely want kids to be bullied if they're gay or trans in this guy's eyes. That is the overarching message that he's trying to lay down for us here.
Speaker. They also have a lecture on January 19th from...
See, these are lectures. These are not classes. This is just like guest speakers appearing there and talking about these issues or whatever. Probably after school clubs, I'd be willing to bet.
Dr. Daniel Siegel, Intraconnected, Self, Identity, and Belonging. All of this sounds just like wonderful, wonderful, totally apolitical stuff.
Who said it has to be apolitical? Clubs are allowed to be whatever they want. Doesn't Charlie Kirk have a whole thing at, you know, college campuses called Turning Points USA that gets kids like involved in the Republican Party as young as humanly possible? That's the whole point of TPUSA, isn't it? Nobody said it had to be apolitical, but see how he's propagandizing here? See how he twists things around to be something other than what they actually are? And actually, there's something in the very beginning of this I wanted to find. We're at 9 minutes. Hang on. Give me a second to find the spot.
Among the younger generation is now in excess of 20%, like 1/5. And good, quote, not so secret gay agenda. And this is why it matters when you see public school administrators who are saying quite openly that they are indoctrinating kids into the wide variety of sexually revealed tape of a dean of students,
right?
Good and attention getting.
Hold on, I'm looking for one thing.
Sexual fluidity and sexual of 20%, like one being at the core equivalent. And anybody who says about Pride Week, the health center come into the classroom, and he describes in great detail what exactly is taught about be bigot. This comes up today because Project Veritas kids into the wide variety of sexual pleasures available to them.
Well, I can't find the specific thing, but what he says is parents are expected to, a parent's main goal should be to maintain your child's innocence. And then he says, teacher's goal is to not maintain that innocence. That's what Ben Shapiro says in this video. If you want to listen to the entire thing, I'm sure you can find it on his YouTube channel. He says, teacher's goal is to not maintain children's innocence. Full stop. That is even propagandistic, even in the way he phrases the things that he says. Because for one thing, let's just set aside the idea that it should be a parent's goal to maintain their children's innocence. I mean, just accept that for the moment, okay? Even though it's kind of ridiculous. I mean, that should be a goal, to make sure that they're not exposed to something they shouldn't be exposed to, I suppose. But he switched the words to not and not to when describing the teacher. He says a teacher's job is to not protect their innocence, when in reality what he meant to say was a teacher's goal is not to protect their innocence, but to educate them. A teacher's goal is to educate them, right? Has nothing to do with protecting their innocence. Now, if somebody is after them or stalking them or trying to like groom them in earnest, a teacher should step in and protect their innocence in that one specific case, right? But a teacher is not setting out to protect a kid's innocence. They're setting out to educate them. But he switched the words not to and to not, and now malice is implied. Now, Ben Shapiro's listeners are primed to see a monster around every corner. They're primed to believe that teachers are setting out to do something nefarious, something evil. They're trying to control and manipulate kids and take advantage of them and take their innocence away, intentionally setting out to do so in Ben Shapiro's narrative. Now, does Ben Shapiro believe this? I don't think so. I don't think he does. I really don't. But that is what he set his audience up to believe, and he knows that.
Just like wonderful, wonderful, totally apolitical stuff. You know, all this is part of a broader agenda, and that is to inculcate in the youngest generation a complete aversion to any sorts of rules, to any sorts of roles, to any sorts of tradition. And to say to these kids that you are basically a Cartesian sexual being that exists in opposition to your body very often, right? This is how you end up with trans ideology, is the idea that you're sort of a disconnected soul in a meat body, and that...
No. The idea that people can be trans has nothing to do with souls. It has nothing to do with the ethereal realm or spirits or any of that stuff. It has nothing to do with any of it. But again, he wants to twist it around and turn it into something that it's not, in an effort to make it seem nefarious and bad and evil. Seem like there's a cabal of people out there setting out to manipulate you, or your children more specifically. That's what it's all about with Ben Shapiro, twisting it around until it's completely out of proportion.
All you have to do is shift your meat body to meet with the dictates of your soul, and then you will be all right. But then that's why your real sex is what you feel inside. It is not your body. Your body's just sort of a meat suit that you wear around all day.
It's completely made up. This is not how it works at all, and he knows that.
This bizarre notion that the core of identity lies in an amorphous view of your own sexual identity, it is so core to what all of the left is now teaching, the radical left anyway. All of the radical left is predicated on the idea that institutions, historic institutions, are shot through with racism and sexism and bigotry, and they have to be torn down, and the best way to tear them down is grab the kids and grab them early and groom them into this ideology.
No. Nobody believes this. He says the radical left believes this. Give me a single example of somebody in a position of power who believes that you need to get children as early as humanly possible and convert them to your cause politically and turn them into little warriors for your beliefs or whatever. It's just completely made up, all of it.
And make them messengers of the ideology. Now, there are a lot of conservative parents who just are unaware of this. A lot of conservative parents, they're still operating on the same track that their parents and their grandparents were operating on. And they're trying to climb that ladder of success. And the way that you climb that ladder of success, historically speaking, is you do fairly well financially. You send your kids to a better school than you did. your kids send their kids to a better school than they did. And eventually, one of your kids gets into Harvard, becomes super rich, and that's sort of the culmination of the American journey. There's one problem with this. There's a lot of baggage that comes along with this these days. And if you are more interested in climbing the ladder of financial and material success and in protecting the innocence of your kids, if you're willing to ignore the indoctrination of your kids, the targeting of kids for this sort of ideological grooming, and I keep using the word over and over because that's what it is. It is
Okay, it may be ideological or political grooming in a technical sense, but he knows exactly what he's doing. He knows that he's conflating, or he's equivocating. That's actually what he's doing here. He knows he's equivocating. He knows what equivocation is. You know how I know that? Because my wife took the LSAT test, and there was a whole bunch of logic stuff on there. He knows what a logical fallacy is. He knows what propaganda is. He knows all this stuff. And he knows exactly how he's twisting the meaning of the word around mid-sentence to give people a very specific impression.
Indoctrination into a particular idea about life, into a particular worldview, and it is terrible for children. You're going to have to show me why it's better for kids to teach them that all forms of sexual activity are morally equivalent and good. Why it is necessary to
Okay, nobody ever said that. No one ever said every form of sexual activity is equally moral and good. There are plenty of different things that you can do that are morally wrong. Lots of stuff. But once again, you've got to twist it around and make it seem like that's what's being said, even though it's not. Make it seem like there's a group of people out there who is setting out to manipulate everybody around them, especially children. This is exactly how QAnon gained prominence, by screaming about saving the children when it was completely made up in the first place. Maybe that's the next moral panic. Maybe it's going to move from trans issues into, saving children that don't even need to be saved. Maybe it'll be both at the same time. They're going to scream about. I mean, that's kind of what they're doing now, right?
Show 13, 14-year-old kids butt plugs and dildos.
Oh, my God. I meant to cut that out. That is the exact thing I wanted to cut out. This is not happening. Project Veritas produced a video of somebody saying that they're doing this or showing kids this stuff. I'm going to have to cut that out later, censor it. I just don't trust a single word out of Project Veritas' mouth. I'm sorry. I don't trust anything they have to say. I think it's all completely made up, first of all. And even if it weren't made up, we don't know the context behind it. I will say this, though. The scientific literature says it is a bad thing to expose somebody who is under the age of 15 to anything sexual like that. The younger they are when they're exposed to something like that, the more harmful the effects. And 15 is the absolute bare minimum. That they're still very likely to experience negative effects being exposed to something like that. You just should not expose kids to that stuff. At the very earliest, honestly, they shouldn't be exposed to it until they're 18. Unless it's like of their own accord and it's something that they're doing because they want to do it or whatever. That's a different thing. They're dating a 15-year-old or something. That's totally different. But they shouldn't be exposed to it if they're under 18, in my opinion. Period. Because it has detrimental psychological effects. Now, aside from that, being gay is not necessarily a sexual thing. People can be gay and it not be sexually involved at all. Have you ever seen romance stories about two kids, a boy and a girl, are like interested in each other and they start dating at, say, 10 years old, 12, 13 years old, 14? I mean, hell, have you ever seen, everybody here went through elementary school, presumably, right? How many girlfriends did you have in elementary school? I didn't have any, but I understand lots of people have like 15 girlfriends simultaneously in elementary school, right? Are they being groomed because they had a girlfriend in elementary school? Of course not. Being a girlfriend or a boyfriend or whatever has no relation to sexual anything. Romantic feelings and sexual feelings are completely different from each other. but they want to conflate them and equivocate words and change their meanings because they can win this battle, they believe, if they use groomer as a slur against the LGBT community naturally.
As this dean of students is talking about, you're going to have to explain to me why 5-year-olds should be exposed to drag queens.
Okay, that's... Okay, hang on. Let me step back. Let's listen to this one more time. Hang on, 11:17. All right, let me step back. Listen to this in its entirety.
Should be exposed to...
Oh, hang on.
Is talking about. You're going to have to explain to me why 5-year-olds should be exposed to drag queens. Or, for that matter, why drag queens feel the necessity to expose themselves to 5-year-olds.
Did you catch what he just said? Why do drag queens feel the necessity to expose themselves to 5-year-olds? The way that he phrased that is technically correct. Technically, say drag queens are hanging out and doing a story hour thing with not 5-year-olds almost ever, but okay, let's say 10, 12, 14, 16-year-olds, right? First of all, drag queens are theater. Many, in fact, I'd venture as far as to say most drag queens aren't even trans. It's theater. People have been dressing up as the opposite gender for centuries, nay, millennia. It's just a part of theater. Didn't people in Shakespeare's play do this too? This is super common. But did you notice what he said there? Why are children being exposed to drag queens? So exposed has one meaning there. He starts out with one meaning. And then he says, for that matter, why are drag queens exposing themselves to children? Now it has a different meaning. And he knows that. He knows that he just switched meanings in the middle of a sentence. And he knows exactly what that does to his audience. Gets them whipped into a blood frenzy, convinces them that some nefarious thing is happening, that children really do need to be saved, that they are... It's convincing his audience that he's using the word groomer in the way that he originally described in the beginning of the video. He said, I am not using it in this way, and then he uses it in this way. See how that works? This is propaganda. This is a master class in propaganda. You cannot tell me he doesn't know what he's saying or doing. I don't believe it for a second.
And why exactly do they feel that is a good thing? And the answer is they feel that that's a good thing because they are going to Pied Piper like take your children from you. And then they're going to return your children in a different form.
Dude, this is just straight up bullshit moral panic. The guy is obsessed with this to an unhealthy degree. It's just theater. That's it. It's just theater. Nobody cared until he started screaming about it, and others. It wasn't just Ben Shapiro. There were a lot of people out there acting like nutter butters about this, of course. But it's just doing a story time thing. It's just people having fun. That's it. There is nothing inherently sexual about it. It's not like people are like convincing children to be gay as a direct result of what's happening here. They're not taking your children and changing them and returning them in a different form. That's not happening. It's completely made up.
They're going to indoctrinate your kids, and then they're going to send your kids home, and your kids are going to argue with you that you don't accept your kids as they are. They are placing kids in opposition to their parents.
So he's straight up saying here, without evidence, that it's possible. In fact, it is the explicit stated goal of anybody on the left that they intend to turn your children gay. They want to turn your kids gay. And by saying that, he's saying that it's even possible to turn your kids gay when it's not. Being gay, if we've said this once, we've said it a billion times, being gay is not a choice. It's not something that people choose to do. I thought this is settled by now. How are we in the year 2022, almost 2023, and people still seem to think that being gay is a choice? You got to be fucking kidding me.
And the truth is, very often, they're just outright and upfront about all of this. In fact, just a few years ago, I think this is maybe the single most telling video in the history of all video. The San Francisco Gay Men's Choir did a song, And it was all about how they were going to take away your children. We're going to indoctrinate your children. The lyrics to that song say.
He's going to read lyrics. You remember what happened last time he read lyrics, right? I don't think I covered this, but I remember it. If you weren't here for it, it was a song called WAP, W-A-P, by Cardi B, maybe? I don't remember who sang the song originally. Anyways, he just kept saying wet-ass P-word, like that over and over and over again. It's so funny. Oh, my God. It was just top-notch. Anyway, yeah, like, I haven't covered that, and I probably won't, but it was memed to hell a while back. So let's keep listening to what he says here. Hopefully he's going to sing for us.
We will convert your children. That is literally the title of the song. We can play a little bit of it.
Yeah, I'm not going to play a little bit of it. It's 30 seconds long. I've never heard it before. I didn't know what it was. But, I have to say, stuff like that is a joke all the time. You can't convert children. I can't believe I have to say this. It's not possible to convert a child to be gay. It's not possible to convert a child to being left-handed. Well, I mean, people can use their left hand if they want, but who would ever want to do that? Like, being left-handed is absolutely terrible. Take it from somebody who's left-handed. Nobody wants that. You can't use scissors. You can't use a whiteboard. You can't write in a notebook without getting your hand all graphite-y or whatever you'd call it. It's the worst. You can't convert people to being gay. It just does not work like that. I'm sorry. And he should know that. He is an educated person. Dude reads books. Okay, so he's Jewish. In fact, matter of fact, you can see a yarmulke on his head, right? If you look closely. He takes it seriously, very seriously. Ben Shapiro does. Every Sunday, he observes the Sabbath, right? Every Sunday, he sits there, or Saturday, I don't know which day he does it, and he reads. Because he's not allowed to use electricity. Because during the Sabbath, you're not allowed to, burn anything. And a lot of electricity comes from burning. Combustion engines in cars can't be used because you're lighting a fire. I mean, there's all kinds of crazy stuff. All kinds of crazy rules involved with this whole belief system. For some reason, Ben Shapiro can't even use highlighters on the Sabbath. I don't know why exactly he can't use highlighters. But the point is, on the Sabbath, you know what he does? He sits there and reads all day. He sits there and reads every week, book upon book upon book upon book. He is an educated person, a very educated person. You cannot convince me that he is as dumb as he pretends to be. You can't.
Funny, just this once, you're correct. And they're overtly saying this. Now, again, what they will say is that when I say that they are grooming kids.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say about these people. This song, they're saying, just this once, you're correct. We're trying to convert your kids. It was a joke. You know how I know it was a joke? You can't convert kids to being gay. You can't. It's not possible. That's not how it works. And Ben knows that.
That what I'm saying is that they actually just want to have sex with the kids. I'm not arguing that. There may be some fringe of these people who actually are pedophilic. That may be true because that's true in a lot of groups. I mean, that's true.
Damn it. I really wanted to cut all this stuff out. I wish that I hadn't messed up the edit when I did it, but okay.
And unfortunately, nearly every community on Earth, there are people who are actual sick pedophiles. But what they certainly are doing, and they're just open about it, is ideologically grooming these kids into they're not their kids, they're your kids. And they will grab your kids and turn them against your value system.
I just don't understand how he believes this stuff, being as educated as he is. He must have the data. He must have at least reviewed the data on this stuff at one point in his life, right? How does he still believe this nonsense?
That is an overt goal. It's not hidden. It's not a conspiracy theory when you just say it out loud. Alrighty, guys, the rest of the show is...
Again, they said it out loud as a joke. It was a joke from the beginning. The entire thing was a joke because that's not how being gay works. That's not how being left-handed works either. But Ben Shapiro, highly educated, Harvard graduate, seems to be stuck in like the 1950s when they believed that being gay was like a virus that people could catch. I just don't understand. I don't understand where his head's at. Makes no sense to me whatsoever. I'm sorry. Dan Yeager just finished my semester. Take my money for our feline overlords. Appreciate that. That is awesome. Thank you so much. I am going to beat this boss real quick. Let's see. Saturday, this was building the Mishkan Tabernacle building. Would be making a fire. Not sure I fully understand. That may be because I'm kind of further away from the screen and I can't read it well. He can't use highlighters on Sabbath because he will end up sniffing them out of boredom. That could be. He uses tabs in his book instead of highlighters. I think that's really interesting. I really wonder why he can't use highlighters, though, in all seriousness. Maybe a Jewish person out there in the audience can tell me, like, if you've ever heard of that, why you can't use highlighters or whatever. Maybe it's just a Ben Shapiro thing. Maybe it's, like, specific to him. He does not believe this. He's a grifter. Yeah, I think you may be right. I have a hard time believing any of this that he says. I don't think that he believes anything that he says. I think it's all completely... I mean, it's most definitely made up, but I think that he might be the one that's making it up. All right, give me a second to beat this guy. Oh, I think that was it. Yeah, I beat him. That was easy. Okay, sweet. Yeah, that's actually the end of Ben Shapiro's little segment.
Continuing right now, you're not going to want to miss it. We will be getting into Cory Booker, who's very upset that Republicans might look into Hunter Biden. Plus, Democrats still complain.
Like, nobody cares if you look into Hunter Biden. Doesn't matter to anybody. If Hunter Biden is guilty of something, then arrest the dude. It's just, he's not. This is very obviously all fabricated nonsense. I don't even see how anybody buys the nonsense they say about Hunter Biden, but okay. Hey, Owen, long-time watcher. Since you're playing Breath of the Wild, what's your favorite champion? My favorite champion? I haven't thought about it. Thanks for the super chat, Monotro Mayhem, I think. Monotro Mayhem. Favorite champion? I guess probably Mifa, because I like that she can restore hearts. That's pretty metal. Thanks for the super chat once again. I'm Jewish. It has to do with cutting, ripping, burning. As for highlighters, I'm not sure. You can't cut, rip, or burn. Really? Interesting. Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. I'll give you guys a little insight into what we're going to be talking about next week. Or, I'm sorry, tomorrow morning. So I do a stream every Wednesday and Thursday on my Unfiltered YouTube channel, Telltale Unfiltered. And this week, starting tomorrow, I'm going to be talking about a guy named... Wait, I thought I had him on here, but maybe I don't. No, I guess I don't. I'm going to be talking about a guy named Umar. Dr. Umar is what he calls himself. He is, he's a more measured version of Kanye West. He agrees with all of Kanye West's positions regarding Jewish people, the Jewish community. He thinks that blacks and whites should in fact be drinking from separate water fountains. He would like that very much. And he's deeply racist about a great many people. And he went on this show called The Breakfast Club. Umar Johnson is what he goes by. I don't think that's his real name, but whatever. That's what he goes by. That's what I'll call him. It's this dude right here.
Wake that ass up.
Nope. No copyright. Okay, here we go. This is him right here. I'm going to be talking about him tomorrow morning.
So then we just started looking for a day school.
Woo! This guy is something else. If you want to see some crazy shit, then come to Telltale Unfiltered tomorrow morning, 11 a.m. I might start at 10:30. We'll see. It just depends on what's happening. Yeah, I'll be doing that, and I'll be doing it on Thursday also. So come over and give that a gander because it is something else. It's going to be really interesting. Anyway, yeah, thank you guys so much for coming and hanging out. It's been fun, and I will talk to you guys next week, okay? All right, have a good one, guys. If you like what I do and you want to make sure I can continue to do it, you can support me in a few ways. First, you can support me on Patreon. That's probably the best way. But if you want to get something back for your support, you can check out my Teespring. I sell all kinds of shirts and stickers and stuff on there. Second, you can support me by checking out my Etsy store. I sell 3D printed stands for every system, from the original Nintendo to the Xbox One. And finally, if you want to support me in other ways, you can check me out on my other channels. I have the podcast channel, which is where I talk about whatever's on my mind. Politics, social issues, whatever. You can also find it everywhere podcasts can be found. Or you can check out the videos on my main channel, where I focus on destructive cults. As it is with most channels these days, I rely on the support of viewers like you to keep my channel alive, so sharing my work is extremely helpful. Anyways, check me out in all those places if you haven't already. Thanks for listening, guys.